There are certain things a woman can give away without even realizing she's doing it. Not her money, not her time, but her power. And most of the time, it slips right through her hands in the form of her words. The truth is, people don't just judge you by what you do, they judge you by what you reveal. One careless conversation, one moment of oversharing, and you've handed someone a blueprint of exactly how to influence you, manipulate you, or diminish you. And here's the thing, once you give that away, you can't take it back. Think about it. How many times have you opened up to someone you barely knew, thinking you were connecting, only to feel uneasy later? How many times did you share something deeply personal and suddenly they treated you differently? Maybe they saw you as less confident. Maybe they saw you as easier to sway. Or maybe they saw you as someone whose boundaries could be bent. High-value women know a secret that most people never learn. The less you reveal, the more you're respected. The more mystery you carry, the more power you hold. This isn't about being cold, fake, or secretive for the sake of it. It's about understanding that not everyone who smiles at you deserves a front row seat to your life. Here's the reality you need to accept. When you give people too much access to your private world, you give them the tools to control how you feel about yourself. They can use your fears against you. They can exploit your struggles. They can shift the dynamic of the relationship without you even noticing, until you're no longer in control of it. Some people can't be trusted with the truth about you, not because they're evil, but because they haven't earned the right to handle it with care. And you, as a woman who values herself, must be ruthless in deciding what parts of you are shared and what parts of you remain yours alone. This is not about playing games. It's about self-respect. It's about protecting your inner world like it's priceless, because it is. The moment you start guarding certain truths, you'll notice something strange happens. People start leaning in. They start paying more attention. They stop taking you for granted. And ironically, the less you reveal, the more they want to know. Because mystery is magnetic and boundaries are beautiful. In the next few minutes, I'm going to share with you the truths you must lock away, the things you must never, under any circumstance, give away too easily. These aren't just tips. These are the lines that separate women who are respected from women who are dismissed. And once you learn them, you'll never look at conversations the same way again. So before we go deeper, I want you to remember this. Not everyone deserves to know you. And when you start living by that, everything about the way people treat you will change. The fastest way to lose respect in the eyes of someone, especially a man, is to hand them a front row seat to your insecurities. The moment you reveal the cracks in your self-belief, you give them a roadmap to where you are most fragile. And while some people will handle that knowledge with care, many will not. Not because they are inherently cruel, but because human nature often leans toward advantage. When you openly display your insecurities, you unconsciously shift the power dynamic in the relationship. You are telling the other person, here's where I doubt myself, here's where I feel unworthy, here's where I'm uncertain about my value. And the sad truth is, not everyone will rush to reassure you. Some will store that information like a weapon in their back pocket, to be used in subtle or not so subtle ways later. Think about it. In the early stages of knowing someone, what's the image you want them to carry of you? Do you want them to see you as solid, composed, grounded, or as someone whose self-image can be shaken with a few wrong words? First impressions are powerful, but so is the gradual picture we paint through what we choose to reveal. Every confession of self-doubt chips away at the aura of self-possession you've built. Now, this doesn't mean you have to live behind a mask of perfection. It doesn't mean you can never share your struggles. But high-value women are selective about who gets access to that part of them, and when vulnerability is not a free-for-all. It's a privilege reserved for the trusted, the proven, and the loyal. When you casually confess insecurities to someone, you're still figuring out you are giving them something they haven't earned, access to your private mental battles. It's like leaving your safe open in front of a stranger and hoping they don't take anything. Maybe they won't, but why take that risk? Here's the thing, your insecurities are not permanent truths about you. They're temporary obstacles you're working through. They do not define you unless you make them part of your public identity. And the more you repeat them out loud, the more you reinforce them in your own mind. Every time you say, I'm terrible at this or I'm not confident about that, you are not just informing the other person, you are training yourself to believe it more deeply. There's also another layer to this. When you tell someone your insecurities early on, you unintentionally shift the relationship into a therapist-patient dynamic. They start seeing you as someone who needs fixing, guiding, or managing, not as an equal. And once you set that tone, it's incredibly difficult to reverse. A high-value woman doesn't position herself as someone who needs to be rescued. She positions herself as someone who is already strong, but is always striving for more. Men, in particular, are wired to respect what they must work for. If you hand over too much emotional transparency too soon, you remove the element of challenge. It's not about manipulation. It's about pacing. Relationships, whether personal or professional, thrive when both people reveal themselves gradually, with intention. Dumping all your doubts on someone at once is not intimacy. It's emotional overexposure. And here's the reality. The more confident you appear, the more care people will take with how they speak to you. They will weigh their words. They will approach you with more respect. When they sense that you are unshakable, they will think twice before testing your boundaries. But if you have already shown them where the weak spots are, they'll know exactly where to push if they ever want to tip the scales in their favor. So guard your self-perception fiercely. Work on your insecurities privately. Build your confidence in the shadows, away from the eyes and judgments of people who have not earned the right to witness your process. If you need to talk about your doubts, choose wisely. A mentor, a close, trusted friend, a family member who always wants the best for you, not the man you just met 2 weeks ago, not the colleague you're still figuring out, not the casual acquaintance who is still deciding how much they value you. You have to understand, the world reads your cues. If you present yourself as confident, capable, and self-assured, people will respond accordingly. If you present yourself as uncertain, fragile, or easily swayed, they will treat you as such, sometimes without even realizing they're doing it. It's human nature to adjust our behavior based on the perceived strength of the person in front of us. This is why high-value women are disciplined in their communication. They speak in ways that affirm their worth, not diminish it. They don't laugh off insults about themselves just to make others comfortable. They don't volunteer stories that make them look small. They don't use self-deprecating humor as a crutch. They understand that every word they say is building a brand, the brand of them. You may think that sharing your insecurities makes you relatable, but with the wrong audience, it simply makes you more manageable. And that's the opposite of what you want. You don't want to be manageable. You want to be respected, admired, taken seriously. And respect is born from strength, not just physical or intellectual strength, but emotional strength. So the next time you feel the urge to confess a fear, a doubt, or a weakness to someone you barely know, pause. Ask yourself, has this person earned the right to see this part of me? If the answer is no, stay silent, because your insecurities are not for public display. They are private chapters of a story that only a select few will ever get to read. And the beautiful thing is, when you keep that part of yourself guarded, you give people something far more powerful to focus on, your strengths. You draw attention to your confidence, your composure, your capability. You become the kind of woman people admire from a distance and work hard to get close to. Not because you're hiding who you are, but because you're wise enough to know that not everyone deserves to hold the most delicate parts of you in their hands. Money is one of the most sensitive topics in any relationship, and yet it's the one that can silently shift power, respect, and even attraction without you realizing it. When you reveal the full details of your financial situation to a man too early or unnecessarily, you hand over a level of control and perception that you may never get back. This isn't about being secretive or deceitful. It's about protecting your independence, your leverage, and your dignity. The truth is, once someone knows everything about your bank account, your income, your debts, and your assets, they may begin to treat you differently, even if they don't consciously intend to. You need to understand that financial information is not just numbers. It's power. It's a reflection of your discipline, your life choices, and your priorities. And if a man has access to all of that without truly earning your trust, He could start making assumptions about what you can or can't do, what you should be able to afford, or even how much he can expect from you. A high-value woman understands that her worth isn't tied to her financial standing, but she also knows that people who are not yet deeply committed to her should not have full access to her financial playbook. Think about it. If you tell a man you're struggling financially, some will see it as weakness, and suddenly your relationship dynamic changes. He may feel superior, in control, or even obligated to save you, whether you want that or not. On the flip side, if you reveal that you're doing exceptionally well financially, some men will begin to see you as a resource rather than a partner. They might not say it outright, but their actions could shift. They could start expecting you to pay more, treat them more, or take on more of the burden. And here's the harsh reality. Once someone views you through a financial lens, it's extremely hard for them to unsee it. A high-value woman knows how to keep her financial cards close until the relationship has reached a stage of genuine commitment, respect, and shared vision. You don't owe a man an itemized breakdown of your income, your savings, or your spending habits, just because he's in your life. What you do owe yourself is the right to keep certain things private until you know for certain that he values you for who you are, not what you have or don't have. And this doesn't just apply to new relationships. Even in long-term commitments, you must maintain some level of autonomy over your finances. Transparency is important when you share a life, but complete dependence or complete exposure can be dangerous. It's about balance. You can discuss financial goals, mutual responsibilities, and shared investments without putting every detail of your personal accounts on the table. The problem is many women overshare financial information early because they think it builds trust or shows openness, but real trust isn't built by spilling your life story. It's built through consistent action, respect, and emotional safety over time. When you reveal too much too soon, you're not creating intimacy, you're creating vulnerability that can be used against you. A man's perception of you should be rooted in your values, your character, and your presence, not the number in your bank account. If he can only respect you based on what you earn, then you've just learned something valuable. He's not the one who deserves you. Money can fluctuate, fortunes can change, but your self-worth should remain untouchable. Here's what you need to remember. In the early stages, financial discretion is self-respect. It says, I am in control of my life, I make decisions for myself, and I decide when and with whom to share this information. That's not secrecy, that's sovereignty. And sovereignty is one of the most magnetic traits a high-value woman can have. Once a man proves his consistency, his loyalty, and his long-term intentions, then you can have open and honest financial conversations that are rooted in mutual respect. Until then, you protect your independence by keeping certain details to yourself. Because at the end of the day, it's not about hiding, it's about making sure the man in your life is there for the right reasons, not for what's in your wallet. If you want him to see you as a partner, not a purse, then let him earn the privilege of knowing that part of your life. And remember, your financial truth is part of your personal power. The wise woman never gives that power away carelessly. Your family is your foundation, your roots, and your inner circle. But no matter how close you are to a man, your family's private matters are not for public consumption, especially not in the early stages of a relationship. A high-value woman understands that loyalty doesn't just apply to romantic partners. It also applies to the people who raised you, stood by you, and shaped you into who you are today. When you share the intimate details of your family's struggles, conflicts, or secrets with someone who hasn't yet earned deep trust, you risk not only damaging your family's dignity, but also changing the way that man perceives both you and them. It's tempting to confide. Maybe you've had a tough upbringing. Maybe your parents went through financial hardship. Maybe your siblings have made questionable life choices. And in a moment of vulnerability, you might feel like sharing those stories will help someone understand you better. But here's the truth. People often remember the worst things you tell them. You might move on, forgive, and heal, but they'll still carry that mental picture of your family, and it will shape how they view you. When a man hears negative or deeply personal details about your family too soon, he may unconsciously begin to judge not just them, but you as well. He might assume you'll repeat certain patterns, or that your background somehow defines your worth. That's the danger. You think you're sharing to connect, But in reality, you're giving away sensitive information that can later be twisted, weaponized, or simply misinterpreted. Family issues are often complex, emotional, and deeply layered. Sharing them with the wrong person can make you feel exposed in ways you can't take back. Imagine confiding in someone about a sibling's addiction, a parent's betrayal, or years of unresolved conflict, and then having that person throw it back at you in a heated argument months or years later. Those wounds cut deeper because they come from a place you thought was safe. Protecting your family's privacy isn't about pretending everything is perfect, it's about respecting boundaries. It's about knowing that not every part of your personal history needs to be open for discussion, especially with someone who hasn't yet proven they can handle that information with maturity, empathy, and discretion. There's also another layer to this, how a man perceives your loyalty. If you're quick to speak negatively about your family to him, he may wonder what you'll say about him when things get tough. People pay attention to how you speak about others, especially those closest to you. A high-value woman sends a clear message through her actions. I protect the people I care about. I speak of them with respect, even when they're not perfect. That kind of loyalty earns respect in return. And remember, once you give away a personal story, you lose control over how it's shared, repeated, or remembered. Even the most trustworthy person can accidentally let something slip, and suddenly your family's struggles are known by people who have no business knowing them. Words travel even when they're wrapped in promises of secrecy. This doesn't mean you can never share. In a healthy, long-term, and deeply committed relationship, there's a place for openness about your background and family experiences. But that sharing should come from a place of mutual trust, where you know the other person has earned the right to that level of intimacy, and where you've seen enough of their character to know they'll hold your truths with care. Until that point, keep your family's private matters where they belong, with the people involved and the trusted few who truly have your best interests at heart. You can talk about your upbringing, your traditions, your values, and the lessons you've learned without exposing the personal struggles of those who never agreed to have their lives laid bare. When you respect your family's privacy, you also protect your own emotional security. You maintain a level of mystery, you prevent unnecessary judgment, and you set the tone for how you expect your own boundaries to be respected. It tells a man that you are not someone who betrays trust easily, and that if he wants to be part of your inner world, he'll have to prove himself worthy of it. At the end of the day, you can't control how people perceive your family once they know their flaws, but you can control what you choose to reveal. And when a high-value woman knows that privacy is not secrecy, it's protection, and she guards what matters most, because she understands that not everyone deserves access to the most sacred parts of her life. Your past relationships are a part of your story, but they are not the whole story, and they are certainly not an open book for every man you meet. A high-value woman understands that sharing every detail about her romantic history is not only unnecessary, it's often counterproductive. When you reveal too much, you give someone the power to judge, compare, and even use your past against you. Some things are better left unsaid, not because you're hiding, but because you're protecting your peace and preserving your dignity. It's natural for curiosity to arise in relationships. People want to know about the life you lived before they came along. But here's the truth. The more you disclose about your past partners, how many there were, what went wrong, who broke your heart, who you left, the more you open the door for unnecessary assumptions and insecurities. It gives the other person a mental picture of you that may not match the woman you are today. You may have grown, healed, and evolved, but in their mind, they could be replaying images of you with someone else, or making silent judgments about your choices. Oversharing your relationship history also risks creating comparisons, either between you and your partner's past lovers, or between your partner and the people you've dated before. Even if you think you're just being honest, those comparisons can plant seeds of doubt. A man might start to wonder if he measures up, or he might assume you have certain patterns that you'll inevitably repeat. This kind of subconscious judgment can slowly erode trust and attraction. Another danger is that revealing intimate details about past relationships can backfire in moments of conflict. Arguments have a way of bringing out the worst in people. And if you've given someone a roadmap of your past pain points, what your ex did, what broke you, what made you leave, they might use those same details as ammunition later. What you shared in confidence can be turned into a weapon in the heat of anger, leaving you feeling exposed and betrayed. There's also a matter of emotional energy. Constantly revisiting your past, retelling the stories of heartbreak, betrayal, or mistakes, keeps those experiences alive in your mind, even if you think you're over them. Speaking about them in detail can stir up old emotions and subtly influence how you behave in your current relationship. High-value women know that focusing on the present and the future is far more empowering than rehashing the past. Now, this doesn't mean you have to be mysterious to the point of being secretive. Healthy relationships are built on trust, and there's a difference between privacy and deception. If a man asks about your past, you can share the broad strokes, acknowledging that you've had relationships, that you've learned lessons, and that those experiences helped shape the woman you are today, without diving into names, timelines, or intimate play-by-plays. It's about boundaries, not barriers. Think of it this way. Your past is like a book, but not everyone needs to read every chapter. Some people haven't earned the right to know your full story yet. And some chapters, especially the ones filled with pain, mistakes, or vulnerability, are better shared only with those who have proven they will treat that knowledge with care. A high-value woman does not offer the most fragile parts of her history to someone who hasn't yet earned her complete trust. It's also important to remember that your past does not define your worth. You are not a sum total of your exes, your heartbreaks, or your mistakes. You are the woman who stands here today, stronger, wiser, and more self-aware because of what you've lived through. By not over-explaining or defending your past, you communicate self-confidence. You send the message that your value is rooted in who you are now, not in who you were then. Men respect mystery. They respect women who don't feel the need to justify every choice they've ever made. When you hold back the intricate details of your relationship history, you allow a man to know you as you are in the present, without the shadow of your past clouding his perception. This keeps the focus where it belongs, on building something meaningful now, instead of living in the echoes of what once was. The truth is, people will always have opinions about your past, but they can only form those opinions based on what you choose to reveal. If you choose to protect certain details, you keep the narrative in your control. You decide what parts of your history are relevant to your current relationship, and which parts are simply yours to keep. Ultimately, a high-value woman knows that the most important love story is the one she's living right now, not the ones that came before. She honors her past without dragging it into her present. She knows that protecting her relationship history isn't about shame. It's about self-respect, emotional safety, and keeping her power firmly in her own hands. Your dreams are the most delicate, precious treasures you carry. They are the seeds of the future you want to create, the quiet visions you hold in your heart. When the world isn't looking, not everyone deserves to know them in full detail, because not everyone will protect them the way you do. Some people will not understand your ambitions, others will dismiss them, and a few will actively try to discourage you. That's why a high-value woman knows that her long-term plans and dreams are not for public display. They are to be guarded, nurtured, and revealed only to those who have earned the privilege of hearing them. When you share your entire roadmap for life too soon, you open yourself up to judgment, criticism, and even sabotage. Not everyone who listens is rooting for you. Some will measure your plans against their own fears and limitations, telling you it's impossible simply because they could never imagine achieving it themselves. Others may smile to your face, but secretly hope you fail, because your success would challenge their own comfort zones. And then there are those who will take your ideas and use them for themselves, leaving you with the bitter taste of betrayal. People's words have power, and the wrong words at the wrong time can crush even the strongest motivation. If you are in the fragile, early stages of building your dream, whether it's launching a business, moving to a new country, changing your career, or starting a passion project, you are like a gardener with a seedling. That seedling is not ready for storms yet. If you expose it too soon, it may wither under the harshness of doubt, negativity, or even unintentional discouragement from people who simply don't see what you see. There's also the matter of energy. Your dreams need your full focus, and every time you share them with someone who questions or challenges them unnecessarily, you're forced to spend energy defending and explaining yourself. Instead of putting that energy into action and progress, you're caught in a loop of justifying your choices. High-value women understand that energy is a currency, and they choose to invest it in building their future, not in convincing others it's worth building. It's not about being secretive for the sake of mystery. It's about protecting your vision until it's strong enough to stand on its own. Once you have taken tangible steps, made progress, and built a foundation, you can share your journey with more confidence. At that point, you're no longer talking about a fragile dream. You're talking about something that already exists in motion, something that's harder for anyone to derail. Another important reason to keep your long-term plans close to your chest is that life is unpredictable. Even the most determined people adjust their paths along the way. When you've told everyone exactly what you're going to do, you may feel pressured to stick to it even if your heart changes direction, just so you don't look inconsistent. This can trap you in commitments that no longer serve you simply because you announced them too soon. A high-value woman gives herself the freedom to evolve without the weight of other people's expectations holding her down. There's also the emotional satisfaction factor. Studies have shown that when you talk too much about your goals, your brain gets a premature sense of accomplishment. You feel as if you've already achieved something simply by announcing it. This can sometimes reduce your motivation to actually follow through, because part of your mind thinks the work is already done. Keeping your plans private preserves that hunger, that fire that pushes you to keep moving until you see results. Not everyone will understand the sacrifices you're willing to make for your dreams. If your goal requires long hours, delayed gratification, or stepping away from things that others value, they may try to pull you back into comfort. This doesn't always come from malice. It can come from love. Friends and family might worry you're taking too big a risk, so they try to protect you from disappointment. But their protection can feel like resistance, and resistance can slow your momentum. A high-value woman understands that dreams are deeply personal. They are a reflection of her soul, her desires, and her values. She does not hand them over for casual conversation or idle gossip. She shares them only with those who have proven they can handle them with care, mentors, trusted friends, or partners who have shown consistent support and belief in her vision. She knows that the wrong audience can dilute her passion, but the right one can amplify it. This doesn't mean you live in total secrecy. It means you become intentional. You can talk about your general values and aspirations, like wanting freedom, happiness, stability, or growth, without outlining the exact steps and timelines you've planned. You can inspire others without giving away every detail of your blueprint. You can be open about your determination without giving people a front row seat to every strategic move. The power of your dreams lies in the fact that they are yours. No one else can feel them the way you do. No one else can see the exact vision in your mind, and that's your advantage. The fewer people who have access to that vision before it's ready, the less interference you'll face along the way. The world will see the results when they're undeniable, and by then, your success will speak for itself. Guard your long-term plans the way you would guard a priceless jewel. Work on them in silence, build them brick by brick, and let the unveiling be a moment of triumph rather than an ongoing discussion. A high-value woman knows that she doesn't need to prove her ambition with words. She will prove it with results. And when she finally reveals what she's been building, it will be too solid, too real, and too powerful for anyone to shake. Your dreams are not just plans on paper. They are the purest reflection of who you are and the life you know you deserve. Not everyone will understand them. Not everyone will support them. And that's exactly why not everyone deserves access to them. A high-value woman doesn't seek validation for her vision. She builds it in silence, fueled by focus and protected by boundaries. Let your actions speak so loudly that when the world finally sees what you've been working on, they can't deny your brilliance. Protect your vision like it's gold, because it is. The future belongs to those who prepare in the dark and shine without asking for permission.